Hey guys, so the first Q&A question that I'm going to answer is in relation to that real relationships topic, in particular in relation to setting healthy boundaries. Now this is something that I'm seeing so much online, it's almost driving me friggin' bonkers because there seems to be such a negative outlook on the whole thing, as in almost as if, look at everyone as if they're trying to break your boundaries and push your parameters, and I don't actually think that's the case. So before we go too far into this topic, I want to point out tip number one. I don't believe people are intentionally going out of their way to cross your personal boundaries. I don't have an actual statistic, but I'm going to put it out on a limb and say I reckon at least 99% of the time, no one is intentionally going out there to hurt you, harm you, make you feel like your boundaries are not respected. We're saying that yes, there's definitely times, situations and circumstances where that might be the complete opposite. But I think for the most part, in relation to this topic, don't think that everyone is out there trying to purposely cross lines with you. I don't think that's the case. I think most people are so wrapped up in their own shit, in their own life, and that's not a good or bad thing, that just is. Everyone's got stuff they're working through, whether it's challenges, obstacles, enjoyment, whatever it is. We all have our own little worlds and things that we're navigating. So I think that people are, because they're the lead role in their own story, I think they're wrapped up in their own stuff and they don't realize when they can cross our own boundaries. So I want to point that out before we go too far in this. I don't think people are purposely trying to hurt you and cross your personal boundaries. The second point I want to touch on today in relation to healthy boundaries is this is a part of uncovering your true self, your authentic self, is learning who you are and what your moral compass is, so to speak. Because what you value can be entirely different to everyone else that's in your world, whether it's your partner, your parents, your children, family, friends, whomever you are experiencing boundary challenges with. You first have to get clear on what you stand for and what matters to you. And there's lots of ways that we unpack that with the work that we do in the Authenticity Connector. But with saying stuff like that, I know for me personally, a lot of my lifelong journey has been pushing my own parameters to find out where I sit with things. I think we get told an awful lot how we're supposed to feel about particular relationships, work, finances, health, well-being, any topic in general. I think we're told how we're supposed to feel and where we're supposed to have boundaries, but that might not actually be congruent for you personally. So I know for me, I kind of spent the majority of my 20s, especially my early 20s, where I would really push myself and put myself in situations where I'm like, I'm going to find out something about myself. Now that might not be aligned with you at all. I like to challenge myself to find out where I sit for me personally, because then I know where my boundaries are and how I feel about all sorts of things. But I think it's important to establish what your expectations are in relation to boundaries. So if you're feeling like someone or multiple people are pushing your boundaries, then maybe you get to ask yourself, what are my expectations with this person or people? And have I articulated that to them? That's a big one, and I hear so frequently, well, no, I just assumed. Assuming doesn't help anyone. You can assume till the cows come home, but assumptions are based off of your perspective, not the other person's perspective. So once again, we can be looking at things from a very different perspective. There's a little wallaby jumping off. I can't flip this around to show you. Sorry. So yeah, have conversations, explain yourself. It doesn't need to be, you've done this to me. It can be, were you aware this is how I feel? Hang on a sec, I'm gonna get run over. Okay, now I'm not gonna get run over. So having conversations with people to make sure that you're actually on the same page, because as I mentioned, the majority of people are not trying to hurt you, harm you, or upset you in some way. They're probably completely unaware. So if you have those conversations, it's probably going to bring you closer together. Another thing that I really wanted to point out in relation to setting healthy boundaries is something that I discuss with all my clients, is being able to honor your true self and also being able to say no. So I think that it'll differ with each person. Like, I know for me personally, so I'll just keep using myself as an example today. I have a big heart. I'm a loving person. I'm a kind person. I'm a supportive person. These are some of my characteristics as a human being. So a part of me wants to always honor those components of my true self, but also not be taken advantage of, establish where my no is, and draw a line in the sand when required. So life will constantly give you opportunities to practice this. So I actually feel there's a little bit of a balance there between honoring your true nature and also saying no. And saying no is actually a big one for a lot of people, because we're so used to having to be a certain way or show up a certain way. And a piece of reconnecting with your authentic self is learning where you need to care for yourself more, where you need to say no, where you need to draw your line in the sand and just say, look, I can't do any more from here. And own that from a kind space, not from a cruel space or a you're pushing my boundaries. Boundaries aren't actually, I believe anyway, boundaries aren't actually a negative thing. It's actually a really beautiful way in which we can help each other understand how we like to be loved, how we like to be supported, how we like to be connected, how we like to XXXYZ, all of the things. It actually helps us build stronger bonds. So I feel like that's a little bit to take in today in relation to boundaries. I would love to hear from you on that topic. So if you could comment in and DM, I look forward to answering more of your questions.